Ladies and gentlemen, friends and fellow humans, we live in a world that often tries to tell us how to be, what to feel, and who we should care about. But there is one thing that we all share, one experience that transcends our differences, connects us as human beings, and that's vulnerability. It's the heartbeat of who we are, the moments where we are raw, exposed, and feeling everything in its purest form. And in those moments, there is one thing that should never be forgotten: the power of empathy. Vulnerability is often misunderstood in our society. We tend to view it as a weakness, something to be avoided or concealed, especially in environments where strength and resilience are celebrated. The idea of being strong has long been tied to the ability to suppress feelings, to avoid showing emotion, and to put up walls that protect us from being hurt. But what if vulnerability, the very thing we tend to shy away from, is actually the greatest form of strength? To be vulnerable is to show up fully in the world, to be willing to let others see the parts of us that are raw, unrefined, and often fragile. It's not about weakness, it's about courage. When we allow ourselves to be vulnerable, we are giving others permission to do the same. It takes real strength to open up, to be honest about what we feel and what we need, and to trust that others will honor that truth. This idea challenges the narrative we often hear, particularly about how we are supposed to keep it together and not show too much emotion. For women especially, there has been a long-standing expectation to balance strength with softness, leadership with nurturing, independence with care. This pressure can lead many to suppress vulnerability in favor of adhering to societal standards. But the irony is, the more we suppress vulnerability, the more disconnected we become from our true selves and from each other. The truth is, it is in our moments of vulnerability that we show our greatest courage. Vulnerability is not about being emotionally reckless or exposing every raw feeling to everyone around us. It's about being authentic in a world that constantly encourages us to hide behind facades. When we allow ourselves to be seen, we embrace the possibility of both joy and heartbreak, success and failure. We put ourselves in situations where we can grow, connect, and evolve, rather than remaining safely within the confines of what feels comfortable and predictable. Take, for example, the moments we experience deep grief or loss. In those times, our vulnerability is at its peak. It is also the time when our need for empathy and connection is the greatest. Rather than pulling away and hiding our pain, embracing vulnerability in these moments allows us to process the emotions, to heal, and to find solace in others who are willing to share that space with us. When we allow ourselves to feel deeply, when we admit that we are hurting, we invite others to join us in that experience. And in doing so, we create a bridge between us, a shared understanding that we are all human and susceptible to the ups and downs of life. There's a powerful thing that happens when we show up in our vulnerability. We inspire others to do the same. When we allow ourselves to be real, to speak our truth, we give others the permission to do so as well. This is where real connection happens, not on the surface, not in the polished, perfected versions of ourselves, but in the messy, unguarded moments where we let go of pretense. It's in these moments of shared vulnerability that we begin to see the depth of who we are and the depth of who others are as well. And yet we often resist vulnerability because it makes us feel exposed. It's uncomfortable, and we fear being judged or rejected. But vulnerability doesn't have to be about exposure. It can also be about choosing who we let see us and how we let ourselves be seen. It's about building trust in relationships, creating safe spaces where we feel comfortable enough to be ourselves without fear of condemnation. This is where real strength lies, in the courage to show up as we are, without apology, without the need to hide our flaws or imperfections. The most significant breakthroughs in our lives often occur when we embrace vulnerability, when we step out of our comfort zones, face our fears, and take risks despite the uncertainty. It's through vulnerability that we experience creativity, innovation, love, and joy. These things don't exist in a vacuum of control or certainty. They emerge from the willingness to take risks, to open our hearts and minds to the possibility of something more. When we put ourselves out there, fully exposed, we allow ourselves to experience the full spectrum of life, from the deepest lows to the highest highs. By redefining vulnerability as strength, we begin to see it as a necessary and transformative part of our human experience. It is not a liability, but an asset, one that enables us to form deeper connections, grow emotionally, and find real meaning in our lives. In fact, vulnerability is the key to unlocking the potential for a more authentic, compassionate world, one where people aren't afraid to feel, to be seen, and to be understood for who they truly are. Ultimately, vulnerability is the bridge to our most profound and authentic selves. And when we step into that space, we don't just show courage for ourselves, we also give others the courage to do the same. Tears are often seen as an expression of weakness, but this perception is far from the truth. In reality, tears are one of the most powerful and profound expressions of human emotion. They are not just a reaction to pain or sorrow, but a reflection of our capacity to feel deeply and to care intensely. When we cry, we are not simply shedding water, we are shedding pieces of ourselves that reflect our internal struggles, our hopes, our fears, and our profound connections to the world around us. The idea that tears are a sign of weakness has been ingrained in many cultures for centuries. We are often taught to hold it together, to suppress emotions, and to present a composed exterior. This has led to a stigma around crying, especially for adults or those who are expected to be strong or in control. For many women, especially, there is a societal pressure to maintain a certain level of composure, to juggle multiple roles with grace, and to never appear vulnerable or overwhelmed. But this approach to emotions ultimately deprives us of the chance to heal, to connect, and to fully process what we are feeling. In truth, tears are one of the most honest forms of emotional expression. They don't lie. They come when words fail, when feelings are too big to be contained, or when the weight of the world becomes too much to bear in silence. When we cry, we are revealing something raw and real about our inner state, something that cannot be hidden or masked. This is not a sign of weakness, but rather a powerful reminder of our humanity. Tears are an invitation for empathy, for understanding, and for connection. They signal that something matters deeply, that a person is invested emotionally or spiritually in what is happening to them. Tears have a way of breaking down barriers between people. When we see someone cry, we are given a glimpse into their soul. Whether it's the soft sobs of a friend going through a difficult time or the quiet tears of someone experiencing joy, there is an unspoken language in those moments. We can feel the depth of emotion that cannot be captured by words alone. In those moments, the walls that so often divide us, our fears, our judgments, our pride begin to dissolve, and we are reminded that we are all in this together. We all hurt, we all love, and we all experience moments of vulnerability. Tears also have a powerful physiological impact on our bodies. They are not just a release of emotion, they are a natural mechanism for healing. Crying helps to reduce stress, regulate emotions, and even improve mood by releasing endorphins. When we allow ourselves to cry, we are giving our bodies the opportunity to process what has been held in, to release tension, and to begin the journey toward emotional recovery. It's as though the act of crying helps to reset our emotional state, offering us a form of relief and an opportunity to regain emotional balance. In some cultures, crying is even seen as a form of ritual or catharsis, a way to honor loss or transition. The act of shedding tears becomes a symbolic gesture, a way of marking a significant change or processing deep grief. There is something sacred about allowing ourselves to cry, to let go of the burden of emotion, and to embrace the vulnerability that comes with it. It's a form of release, a means of letting go, and a way of accepting that it is okay to feel, even when those feelings are intense or overwhelming. What's important to understand about tears is that they are not something to be fixed, minimized, or ignored. When someone cries, it's not our job to rush in with solutions or to try to cheer them up. Instead, the most powerful thing we can do is simply to be present, to witness their tears, to acknowledge their pain or joy, and to offer support in whatever way they need. Sometimes just being there, without judgment or expectation, is the most healing thing we can do. The presence of someone who understands that tears are not a weakness, but a testament to the human experience, can create an environment of acceptance and comfort. When we see someone cry, it is a reflection of their willingness to be vulnerable, to expose the emotional layers that they may have been keeping hidden. Rather than seeing tears as something to avoid or dismiss, we can learn to honor them. We can view them as a form of communication that speaks volumes about what someone is going through. It's a reminder that even in the midst of emotional pain, there is a certain beauty in being able to release what is held inside, to let it flow out, and to give ourselves permission to feel deeply. In this way, tears are not just a reflection of sadness, they are also a sign of love, compassion, and connection. They remind us of the importance of being open to our emotions, of allowing ourselves to feel fully, and of embracing the moments that make us human. To cry is to be truly alive, to honor the full range of human emotion, and to understand that vulnerability in all its forms is a powerful and essential part of the human experience. Empathy is the glue that holds human connection together. It is the quiet yet profoundly impactful act of truly understanding and sharing the feelings of another person. In a world that often values quick fixes, productivity, and efficiency, empathy can feel like a rare commodity. But in reality, it is one of the most important tools we have to build meaningful relationships, foster trust, and create communities that are grounded in compassion. Empathy is not just a soft, passive emotion. It's an active, intentional act of reaching across the divide and saying, I see you, I hear you, I feel what you're feeling. When we practice empathy, we do more than just acknowledge someone else's pain or joy. We enter into their experience and allow ourselves to feel it too. This means letting go of our judgments, our assumptions, and our need to offer solutions. It means listening deeply, not just to the words that are spoken, but to the unspoken feelings and needs that lie beneath the surface. It is not about fixing the problem or offering advice unless it's asked for, but about being fully present in that moment of emotional expression. Empathy is not easy. It requires vulnerability on both sides. To truly empathize with someone, we must be willing to sit with their discomfort, their pain, or even their joy without trying to change it. This can be hard, especially when we're not sure how to fix the situation. Our instinct might be to jump in with solutions to try to make things better immediately. But real empathy is about sitting in the discomfort with the other person, holding space for their emotions without rushing to remove them. It's about letting them know they are not alone, that their emotions are valid, and that their feelings matter. True empathy also requires us to confront our own biases and experiences. It is easy to feel empathy for someone when their experience mirrors our own. But when someone's experience is different from ours, when their pain or joy comes from a place we cannot fully understand, it can be challenging to connect. However, it is precisely in these moments where empathy becomes even more crucial. To empathize with someone who is different from us, whether it be in terms of race, gender, background, or experience, requires us to step outside our comfort zones and into their world. It requires humility, a willingness to learn, and an openness to understanding perspectives that are foreign to us. The power of empathy is transformative, not just for the person who is being listened to, but for the one who is listening. When we truly practice empathy, we begin to see the world through another person's eyes. We gain insight into their struggles, their joys, and their vulnerabilities. This deep understanding fosters connection and compassion, which in turn builds trust. When someone feels truly understood, they are more likely to open up, to be real, and to allow themselves to be vulnerable. This creates an environment where people feel safe to express themselves, knowing that their emotions will be met with kindness and respect. Empathy also strengthens our sense of community. It is the foundation of cooperation, collaboration, and mutual respect. When we cultivate empathy, we create spaces where individuals feel valued for who they are and where their feelings and perspectives are taken seriously. Empathy allows us to see beyond the surface level, to understand the complexity of each person's experience, and to celebrate the diversity of human emotions. It helps us create environments where everyone, regardless of their background or situation, feels seen and heard. Moreover, empathy is essential for emotional healing. When someone is in pain, whether physical or emotional, the presence of someone who listens with empathy can be profoundly healing. Just knowing that someone is there, offering a listening ear and a compassionate heart, can lighten the emotional load. Empathy creates a safe container for emotions to flow freely without fear of judgment. It allows people to release what they are holding inside, to let go of the weight of their struggles, and to find a sense of solace in the understanding of another person. In times of grief or loss, empathy becomes even more crucial. Words often fail in these moments, but empathy has the power to convey what words cannot. The simple act of sitting with someone who is grieving without trying to offer solutions or explanations can be a profound act of love. It tells the person that their sorrow is seen, that their pain is valid, and that they are not alone in it. Empathy helps to soften the harsh edges of grief, providing a buffer between the pain and the healing process. Empathy is also essential for creating change in the world. When we are able to empathize with others, we are more likely to take action in ways that benefit the collective good. Empathy pushes us to care about issues that may not directly affect us, but that have a significant impact on others. It inspires us to act in the interest of fairness, justice, and equality, particularly for those who are marginalized or oppressed. Through empathy, we become more attuned to the needs of those around us, and we develop a greater sense of responsibility to advocate for the well-being of others. Ultimately, empathy is the key to creating a world that is more compassionate, more understanding, and more connected. It is the invisible thread that ties us all together, reminding us that no matter our differences, we are all human, and we all experience the highs and lows of life in deeply meaningful ways. When we lead with empathy, we open the door to deeper, more fulfilling relationships, stronger communities, and a more just and compassionate world. Every interaction we have with others carries weight, whether it's through words, actions, or even our silence. Our words in particular have a unique power. They can either build someone up or tear them down. They can heal or harm, offer comfort or cause pain. In every conversation, we have the choice to uplift or diminish, to contribute to someone's well-being or to erode their sense of self-worth. The way we speak to others, especially in moments of vulnerability, matters deeply. It shapes not only their experience of us, but also their own sense of value and belonging in the world. When we communicate, we are not just exchanging information, we are engaging in a relational act. Every word we speak has the potential to affect the emotional landscape of the person we're speaking to. This is especially true in moments of distress, where words can either offer relief or deepen the wound. The way we use language reflects how we view and respect the other person. If we treat others with kindness and understanding, our words can be a source of healing. But if we dismiss, criticize, or belittle someone, we risk inflicting lasting damage. The power of words goes far beyond mere communication. They serve as a mirror of our intentions, values, and attitudes. The language we use often reflects how we feel about someone, even if it is not overtly expressed. When we speak from a place of empathy and care, we can create an atmosphere of safety, trust, and understanding. Our words can validate another person's experiences, acknowledge their struggles, and offer a sense of connection. Conversely, when we speak from a place of indifference or insensitivity, we can inadvertently alienate, isolate, or even traumatize the person we are engaging with. Think about the moments when someone has said something to you that left an indelible mark. It could have been something as simple as a compliment that lifted your spirits on a bad day, or as painful as a harsh criticism that made you doubt yourself. Words can stick with us in a way that nothing else does. They can linger in our minds, shaping the way we see ourselves and the world around us. If the words we speak to others are thoughtful and compassionate, we have the ability to leave a lasting positive impact on their lives. But when we are careless with our language, we risk causing harm that may persist long after the conversation ends. It's not just about what we say, but how we say it. Tone, body language, and timing all play crucial roles in the effectiveness of our communication. A kind word said with empathy and genuine care can heal a wound, but the same word said with sarcasm, impatience, or disdain can wound even deeper than silence. Our tone carries the emotion behind our words, and body language adds another layer of meaning to what we say. A smile, a touch, or a warm gaze can amplify the impact of our words, creating a safe space for another person to open up and feel heard. On the other hand, a dismissive gesture, an eye roll, can undermine our words and make someone feel invisible or unimportant. At the heart of this is the recognition that every person we interact with is carrying their own story, one that we may not fully understand. We all have our own struggles, fears, hopes, and desires, and these shape the way we experience the world. When we engage with someone, we have an opportunity to acknowledge their humanity, to recognize that they are more than just a surface-level interaction. They are a person with their own story, and they deserve to be treated with respect and compassion. How we speak to someone in these moments can affirm their worth or diminish it. It can either encourage them to keep going or convince them to give up. The stakes are high, especially in moments of emotional vulnerability. When someone is sharing something deeply personal, whether it's pain, fear, or even joy, the way we respond can have a profound impact on their ability to process those emotions. If we respond with empathy, acknowledging their feelings without judgment, we help them feel safe and supported. But if we respond with dismissal, interruption, or criticism, we can make them feel invalidated and alone in their experience. The trust that is built through compassionate communication is fragile, and once broken, it can be difficult to rebuild. Our words have the power to influence the way people see themselves. In moments of doubt, fear, or uncertainty, the words we choose can either reinforce their self-worth or chip away at it. A few words of encouragement can ignite hope and motivation, while a few words of criticism can crush a person's confidence. This is especially true for people who are already vulnerable or struggling. In these moments, we must choose our words with great care. They are not just words, they are reflections of the person we are speaking to, and they shape the emotional landscape of our relationships. The responsibility lies in our hands. We have the power to either make someone feel seen and valued or ignored and insignificant. The challenge is to recognize that we hold this power in every interaction. Our words, while they may seem small or fleeting, have the potential to leave a lasting impact. And when we make a conscious effort to speak with kindness, empathy, and respect, we can create spaces where people feel safe enough to be their authentic selves. In these spaces, healing happens, connections are strengthened, and trust flourishes. Our words should always reflect the humanity of the person we are speaking to, acknowledging their emotions, struggles, and triumphs. When we speak with intention and compassion, we create a culture of kindness and understanding, one where everyone feels valued and heard. This is how we begin to change the world, one conversation at a time. The silence that follows a moment of vulnerability can often be more profound than the words spoken before it. Silence is not simply the absence of sound, it is the absence of connection. It can signify discomfort, distance, or the feeling that something important has been left unsaid. When someone opens up, when they share something deeply personal, and the response they receive is silence, it can feel like a rejection of their emotions. It's a void where empathy, compassion, and understanding should be, and in its place, a sense of loneliness or alienation can quickly take root. The silence that follows someone's emotional expression is a powerful moment. It carries the potential to either reinforce the connection between individuals or create a disconnection that can linger long after the conversation ends. When we don't respond, when we fail to meet the other person's vulnerability with words or actions that acknowledge their feelings, we unintentionally communicate that their emotions don't matter, that they are not worth responding to. In these moments, the absence of response is not neutral, it's a statement in itself. Silence in response to vulnerability can be just as damaging as harsh words or criticism because it suggests indifference or a lack of care. Think about the last time you were vulnerable with someone, perhaps when you shared a fear, a dream, or a moment of pain. If the response was silence, how did that make you feel? It's likely that you felt a sense of isolation, a sense of not being seen or heard. Vulnerability, by its very nature, is about connection. It's about seeking acknowledgement and understanding from others. When that acknowledgement is withheld, even through something as simple as silence, it can create a feeling of emotional abandonment. On the other hand, when we respond to vulnerability with empathy, understanding, and words that validate the other person's emotions, we fill that silence with connection. We bridge the gap between ourselves and the other person, offering them not just an emotional presence, but also a recognition of their experience. Responding to vulnerability with presence and care allows the other person to feel safe, to feel understood, and to feel less alone in their struggle. This is where true healing happens, not in the absence of words, but in the careful, compassionate response to another's pain or joy. Silence, when used intentionally, can also serve as a powerful tool in communication. There are moments when words fail, when no response seems sufficient, and when silence becomes a way to honor the gravity of what has been shared. Sometimes it's about holding space for someone to process their emotions, offering a quiet presence that says, "I'm here with you." In these moments, silence can be a sign of respect for the other person's emotional state, allowing them to feel their feelings without the pressure of needing to move past them. It's a recognition that not everything needs to be fixed, and that sometimes just being there in silence is enough. However, it's important to remember that silence must be purposeful. If we choose to remain silent in response to someone's vulnerability, it should come from a place of empathy and understanding, not avoidance or discomfort. If we are silent because we don't know how to respond or because we feel uncomfortable with the other person's emotions, the silence may inadvertently communicate a lack of support or care. In these cases, the silence serves as a barrier, keeping the person from feeling truly heard or understood. What makes silence particularly powerful is that it's not always the absence of sound, it's the absence of connection. When we are silent in response to someone's vulnerability, we withdraw emotionally, creating a gap between ourselves and the other person. This emotional withdrawal can be felt deeply, even if we don't explicitly reject the other person. The lack of response is often interpreted as indifference, and this can lead to feelings of rejection, confusion, or self-doubt. At the same time, silence is not always harmful. It can be a sign of deep respect for the other person's experience and a way of showing that we are carefully processing what they've shared. If we are genuinely unsure of how to respond, it may be better to pause, to sit in the silence for a moment, and to gather our thoughts before speaking. This is often more valuable than rushing to provide a response that doesn't fully acknowledge the depth of the situation. Silence, when paired with the intention of being present and thoughtful, can allow us to respond with greater care, ensuring that our words are meaningful and grounded in empathy. The danger of silence lies in its ambiguity. If someone is vulnerable and the response is simply to fill the space with nothing, the other person may feel that they are not worth the effort, that their emotions are not worth validating. Silence can convey more than just hesitation or discomfort. It can communicate rejection. And that can be more painful than harsh words. Vulnerability is one of the most profound and complex aspects of the human experience. When we open ourselves up to others, we are not just revealing our thoughts, but also our deepest feelings, fears, and desires. We expose ourselves to the possibility of hurt, rejection, or misunderstanding, yet in doing so, we allow for the potential of deep connection, growth, and authenticity. It is in vulnerability that we discover our true selves, not the polished, perfected versions that we often present to the world, but the raw, unfiltered parts that carry our true humanity. One of the most significant aspects of vulnerability is the way it fosters connection between people. When we allow ourselves to be seen, truly seen by others, we are inviting them into our most authentic selves. And in turn, when others show us their vulnerability, we are invited into their world as well. This exchange is the foundation of meaningful relationships. It is through vulnerability that we form bonds that are not based on surface-level interactions or pretense, but on shared experiences, emotions, and understanding. Vulnerability creates an intimacy that cannot be replicated by any other form of communication. It is a deep, unspoken agreement between individuals to show up as they truly are, without fear of judgment or rejection. However, vulnerability is often met with resistance, especially in a culture that values strength, self-sufficiency, and control. We are often taught that vulnerability is a weakness, something to be hidden or avoided. This belief is especially ingrained in people who are expected to be strong or resilient, such as leaders, parents, or caregivers. There is a societal expectation that these individuals must always be composed, steady, and in control, and that any sign of vulnerability, whether it be tears, uncertainty, or emotional distress, is a sign of failure. This view not only harms the individual who is trying to suppress their vulnerability, but also prevents others from connecting with them on a deeper, more authentic level. But vulnerability is not about weakness. It is not about being unable to handle life's challenges or emotions. In fact, it is often the opposite. Vulnerability requires strength, the strength to acknowledge our feelings, to embrace uncertainty, and to accept that we cannot always control or predict the outcomes of our lives. It is the courage to be open, to show up fully, and to risk emotional exposure in the hopes of forming genuine connections with others. When we are vulnerable, we are choosing to be honest and real in a world that often encourages us to hide behind masks. Embracing vulnerability also requires trust. Trust that the people we open up to will honor our vulnerability with care, understanding, and respect. This trust is essential because when we expose our inner selves, we are not just sharing our emotions, we are also inviting others into our lives, asking them to bear witness to our experiences and to offer their support and compassion. If that trust is broken, if our vulnerability is met with indifference, ridicule, or dismissal, the damage can be profound. It can create emotional walls, leaving us feeling isolated and unworthy of connection. On the other hand, when our vulnerability is met with empathy and understanding, it deepens the bond between us and the other person, creating a sense of safety and belonging. The courage to be vulnerable extends beyond personal relationships and into all areas of life. It takes vulnerability to pursue a passion or a dream, especially when success is uncertain. It takes vulnerability to fail and to try again, to put ourselves out there despite the fear of rejection or ridicule. In our careers, our creative endeavors, and our personal growth, vulnerability is the gateway to learning, innovation, and transformation. When we allow ourselves to be vulnerable, we open the door to possibility, give ourselves permission to explore new ideas, to take risks, and to embrace the challenges that come with growth. Without vulnerability, there's little room for progress or self-discovery. Despite the risk involved, vulnerability is ultimately a powerful force for personal and collective transformation. It is through vulnerability that we experience true emotional healing. When we share our fears, our grief, our hopes, or our doubts with others, we often find that we are not alone in our experiences. Vulnerability invites empathy and understanding, and in turn, it fosters a sense of connection and community. It reminds us that we are all human, that we all experience struggles and joys, and that we are not alone in our journey. At its core, vulnerability is about being authentic, not just to others, but to ourselves. It is about acknowledging and accepting our emotions, our imperfections, and our humanity. When we embrace our vulnerability, we give ourselves the freedom to be who we truly are, without the pressure of living up to external expectations or societal norms. It is in this space of authenticity that we can find peace, healing, and fulfillment. Vulnerability is not a one-time act, but a continual process of showing up as ourselves, day after day, with all our flaws, hopes, and uncertainties. In doing so, we not only enrich our own lives, but also contribute to the creation of a more compassionate, understanding world. In every word we speak, in every moment of silence, and in every act of vulnerability, we hold the power to shape the lives of those around us. Our words can either build bridges or create walls. Our presence can heal or harm, and our vulnerability can foster deep, meaningful connections or leave us as feeling isolated. But when we choose to speak with empathy, to respond with care, and to embrace our own humanity, we not only create safer spaces for others to be their true selves, but we also unlock the potential for healing, growth, and transformation both within ourselves and in the world around us. Let us remember that it is through connection, compassion, and the courage to be vulnerable that we can make the world a more understanding and loving place for all.